A true leader understands that blowing out someone else's candle does not make yours shine any brighter. Coming up, the US Secretary of State has expelled our own ambassador, Ebrahim Rasool, declaring him persona non grata, which means he is no longer welcome in the US anymore, and that they are not recognizing him as a foreign diplomat.
Let's start, in fact, with what led to all of this. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that South Africa's ambassador to the U.S. is no longer welcome in that country. In a post on X, Rubio accused Ebrahim Rasool of being a race-baiting politician who hates America and also basically said does not like Donald Trump over remarks he had made during an online speech about foreign policy. So Nick Harper, our correspondent, has more from Washington on that.
Well, normally in these type of situations when an ambassador is deemed to be a persona non grata, that is something that takes immediate effect. It is unclear exactly how quickly he would be expected to leave the country, but the implicit implication in all of this that it is as soon as possible. Now, it's not normally the case that ambassador would be frog marched to the airport and put on the next available plane home. But the expectation is that essentially relations between that ambassador and the country that they've been living in is severed almost as quickly as is possible. So there is a chance that he will have to clear out of the residency in Washington during the course of this weekend and head home. We don't have an exact time frame of how all of this will play out, but from the United States point of view, this statement from the Secretary of State is final. There is no suggestion that they will back down from this. It is the ultimate in terms of diplomatic relations, in terms of diplomatic endings, this statement being very much the final word from the US administration. Marco Rubio also in that statement making it clear that the US had no further things that it would be willing to discuss with the ambassador as part of considering him now a persona non grata.
This came as a result of Ebrahim Rasool saying in his Zoom meeting that Trump is leading a global white supremacist movement. Oops, bad move from our ambassador. He shouldn't have said that.
Donald Trump is launching an assault on incumbency, those who are in power, by mobilizing a supremacism against the incumbency at home, and I think I've illustrated abroad as well. So in terms of that, the supremacist assault on incumbency, we see it in the domestic politics of the USA, the MAGA movement, the Make America Great Again movement, as a response, not simply to a supremacist instinct, but to very clear data that shows great demographic shifts in the USA, in which the voting electorate in the USA is projected to become 48% white, and that the possibility of a majority of minorities is looming on the horizon. And so that needs to be factored in so that we understand some of the things that we think are instinctive, nativist, racist things. I think that there's data that, for example, would support that would go to this wall being built, the deportation movement, etc., etc. So I think I mentioned that. I think that there is also an export of the revolution. It's no accident that that Elon Musk has involved himself in UK politics and elevated a Nigel Farage and the reform movement in much the same way that it was instructive that on his way to the Munich Security Summit, Vice President Vance addressed the Alternative für Deutschland to strengthen them in their election campaign. And that then begins to say, what was the role then of Afrikaners in that whole makeup? And very clearly, It's to project white victimhood as a dog whistle, that there is a global protective movement that is beginning to envelop embattled white communities, or apparently embattled white communities. It may not be true, it may not make sense, but that is not the dog whistle that is being heard in a global white base. So I think we need to understand all of that.
As true as that might be, I think that was neither the right time nor the right place for our ambassador to say that. Consider the bruised relationship we are having with the US. Our ambassador shouldn't have uttered statements like that. He was supposed to just focus on building the relationship with the US. He was supposed to do whatever it takes to mend the relationship with the US, because that's where Cyril is right now. That's what Cyril is doing right now. I don't mean that you should allow the bullying by US, but what I mean is consider where we are right now, or where Cyril is with Trump. All right? Our ambassador should have taken a tune from there, or should have taken a cue from our president.
Rasool is using words that are unpalatable with his function as a diplomat. He uses very serious rhetorics that is generated within South Africa. He shouldn't have done that. Having said that, I think the American could have handled the situation much better. But given the toxic relations that exist between South Africa and the United States, the US has opted for this. And the US communicates through Twitter. Article 9 of the Vienna Convention makes it quite clear that any diplomat can be declared a persona non grata without giving reasons as to why. And I think Americans are not obliged to give any reasons as to why. But there are two approaches to the persona non grata in terms of the convention. The softer one is that the receiving state can ask the sending state, in this case, the American can ask South Africa to recall the ambassador and not expel him. But the harsher part of it, which is the confrontational one, is to declare him a persona non grata and give him 72 hours to leave the country. Failure to, he loses his diplomatic immunities.
I totally agree with our former ambassador who has just spoken right now that Rasool should have taken a tune from the president, looking at where president is in as far as US is concerned, and take it from there. But him just swimming opposite direction, really, that was not an intelligent move at all. Because okay, now after saying that, as true as that might be, fine, you said it, and then what? How is that going to benefit the South Africans? How is that going to benefit the relationship that these two countries are trying to mend?
Right, we're going to be joined now by SABC News International News Editor Sophie Mokoena. She's joining us on the line now. An interesting couple of hours of developments, Ms. Sophie, if we take a look at that tweet by Marco Rubio. And this is, of course, on the backdrop of these reported statements that were made by Ebrahim Rasool. Talk to us about, first of all, the tone that we see in the tweet or in the X of the Secretary of State of the United States of America.
Well, the tone is clear. It's the expulsion of the ambassador in the United States of America. In other words, a clear message that he has to leave the country immediately. And we have since learned that he was called in at the State Department and he was told to leave within 72 hours. We are still trying to get hold of the ambassador to verify this information. But as you heard earlier on from that report, Nick Harper in Washington, indicating that this is an immediate action and it has to be that directive implemented with immediate effect. It's not like he was called in for questioning. he has been declared undesirable person in the United States of America.
Let's take a listen to what the presidential spokesperson here in South Africa, Vincent Magwenya, had to say.
The presidency has noted the regrettable expulsion of South Africa's ambassador to the United States of America, Mr. Ebrahim Rasool. All relevant and impacted stakeholders to maintain their established decorum in their engagement with the matter. It remains committed to building a mutually beneficial relationship with the United States of America.
On the other hand, I think Trump administration has been very draconian in dealing with our ambassador, Ebrahim Rasool. Consider the fact that you will remember last year, guys, an American ambassador uttered a wrong and unchecked statement about South Africa, saying that South Africa was supplying Russia with weapons. You remember the guy said, yeah, there was a ship in Cape Town where South Africa was sending weapons to Russia, supplying weapons to Russia against Ukraine. And South Africans, or should I say, our president was very lenient in dealing with that situation. We never said that ambassador should leave the country. We never expelled that ambassador. It's critical and dangerous as the information was that the ambassador was saying, but we never expelled him. The US has got an audacity of being so hard to South Africa.
The arming of Russia by South Africa with the vessel that landed in Simonstown is fundamentally unacceptable. We are confident that weapons were loaded onto that vessel, and I would bet my life on the accuracy of that assertion. Our officials reiterated our respect for South Africa's policy of neutrality and non-alignment in international affairs. And yet they noted a series of issues which suggest that in practice, the government of South Africa is in fact not non-aligned.
So yes, as much as it was such a careless move from our ambassador or by our ambassador to utter such words without having to check the temperature of the relationship between South Africa and the US, I still believe that USA was very harsh and draconian in dealing with Ebrahim Rasool like that, expelling him with immediate effect like that. So what do you think? Let me hear your comment below, of course. And if you're coming for the first time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.